Hey
Hey
everybody, how's it
guys,
going?
welcome back to What the Phuc. Oh my God.
Like, why are you guys laughing already? It's like I pushed the button and Phuc had to go to the bathroom. Like, it is what it is. No
No,
editing
I
here.
can hold it, man. I can hold it.
Let's
I'm a
do this.
master.
So how
But
is
anyway,
everything
guys,
going?
I noticed that there's like 4 or 5 people who consistently watch this podcast. Thank you,
We love you.
Mom, whoever it is. Uh, but you guys, you know what? You're part of the cult now. You're part of the Phooksters, right? Thank you. In the first podcast episode, we have 300 views now.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's true. Like, this is episode 40 right now.
But we only have 50 subscribers, and my daughter has like 1,000 subscribers now, and she has tons more views per thing than me. So she's kicking my ass, and she's 13.
We're doing something wrong. We're not talking about the different topics, huh?
So actually, Roberto and I were talking about creating a more production value series for the science that I'm doing. So that's actually
Yep.
something that's literally 5 minutes. We just spoke about it 5 minutes ago, right?
Yep. Yeah. Like right now, and it's gonna take shape soon. I mean, like I can see it happening, and I know exactly what we have to do. It's gonna be awesome.
Okay. So all the wacky stuff I've been saying on the show, I'm going to package it into a book. I'm going to write a book called The Law of Emergent Knowledge. And these guys, they're going to create a documentary series with each segment talking about some of the theories in the book and some of these wacky theories. But here's why we're doing this, right? Phuc Labs is kicking ass. I want to give you guys some
Yes.
good news. We'll talk
Oh,
about that later on in the episode. But what else am I meant to do is to spread the knowledge about these ideas. It's not about me, it's about the ideas. The idea is that information itself is a third force of nature. It's basically the third wing of physics. It's magic. It's God magic, I call it, right? The way you have to think about it is this, right? Let's say you pray to God. Please, God, give me the winning lottery ticket. And God gave you the winning lottery ticket. You would think that's a miracle. Does that make sense?
it does because it's not. It's very random. So if we actually hit it, something has to have intervened.
Okay. Now you look inside this box and you see this ant. And this ant's looking for a leaf to eat. The ant's gonna not find that leaf because the leaf is over there. And there's no way the ant can get that leaf. You lift that leaf and you put it next to the ant grabs it. Okay? That's God magic. But you physically moved it, right?
Yep.
Now imagine, so that's matter and energy. That's you using God magic, using matter and energy. That's like saying God went out to the store and bought you a lottery ticket and gave it to you. Okay, that's kind of silly, right? What's easier for God magic is information. Instead of saying that's impossible for the ant to grab that leaf, let's talk to that ant and tell that ant to grab other ants. And if the ants work together, they can build a way up to that leaf and grab it. And if you use telepathy and mind control, whatever you want to call it, or just have the ants pray to the God that's you, and you answer back, using information, you can change reality. Just like God changed your reality about how you get rich suddenly. Because the idea is information is the observer. The observer gets to send information in if they want to. God can talk to you if God wants to. We can interact with that ant if we want to, right? Right? Maybe we put pheromones so that all the ants gather together to that area
Mm-hmm.
and they know that pheromone is food and they can smell it and they can lead a trail to all the ants to go gather there and then you figure a way. I don't know. But the idea is information could be through a smell. I don't know. Maybe you could actually put a smell, and that's something that we have to do. But God would have to actually interact with this world, but through information, through a thought, right? Through guiding you to do something, through intuition. But also, it's a system that you can measure. Because what you're doing is you can measure the data that has changed in the system that you actually sent information into. You can measure what changed. The change was the leaf had the potential to be consumed by the ant. And you allowed for that potential to be fulfilled. You gave a prophecy: if the ants build this hill, you shall have heaven. And you will no longer starve, and your whole village will be fed with this leaf. And you have to have faith from the ants to build this hill, even though they're starving. And they reached the mountaintop, and their God was right, and they listened to the God forever, and they worshiped the God. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And it's funny
That's God
because, like,
magic.
it's just like, and it's so it's such a like a
It's just
random
information.
Yeah,
It's a perspective, right? It's an understanding of how to go between two universes. You have a universe as a God.
mm-hmm.
The ant has a universe, and they have different resolutions of time, scale, spirituality, intelligence, what we talked about, and that's the docuseries.
He's just pitching a teaser right now.
Well, I'm just telling you that's why it's important that we do this, because the idea is information itself is a third force of nature. It's magic. What is information but a spell? What is computer science but casting a spell, writing some code, having the code execute and do something? What is code but just a thought? A thought that you put on paper or on a keyboard into an electronic system, just like you would a spell. And so all these are perspectives, and you just have to understand that God magic is magic. It's also science. It's a type of science that has to be explained. And so I'm going to try to explain it in the book. And you can help me make the video, right?
Yeah. Just
That's the idea.
There's a book coming up.
So anyway, that's what the book, we talk about that. We also talk about aliens. We talk about ghosts. We talk about stuff. And we talk about also like math, right? So I had an idea the other day. Okay.
What?
This is actually a very important concept that it's lingering in my brain. And you guys can actually it can linger in your brain too. Okay. Do you know what a line is, right?
Heard of it, yeah.
Okay. So basically, if you draw a line,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically you having a destiny or a thought or something like that, right? So let's say I go in a straight line and I change direction.
Okay.
That's basically how everything in the universe works. It's basically an if conditional. If I get to this point, I'm going to turn. If I meet the woman of my dreams, I will marry her. Or these are the three choices for me, right? So the if conditional in math is the first turn ever, mathematically. Okay. And I was doing this and I was thinking about it. Well, what's a turn in math? There's nothing in math that turns. And then I thought about it a little bit more, and I realized, oh my God, something squared or an absolute value is a turn. Okay?
What do you mean?
Okay. It's an if conditional. It's an if conditional in math. Let's say I have 1 or 2 squared. Let's say 2 squared, right? 2 squared is 4. Does that make sense?
Yes. Why?
Negative
Because 2
negative
times 2
2
is
squared Negative 2 squared is also 4.
Yes.
But negative 2 times 2 is negative 2.
-4.
So basically, how does negative 2 squared and 2 squared equal 4? One of them turned. Does that make sense?
Yes.
To end up at the same spot, you end up at 4. You start at different spots. You start at negative 2. You start at 2. 2 ends up at 4 because 2 times 2 is 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Negative 2 times negative 2 somehow ends up also at 4. But negative 2 times 2 ends up at negative 2. So basically, negative 2 is different from 2.
And -4. Yeah.
So 2 and negative 2 is not the same thing. But negative 2 turns. Sometimes it turns left, sometimes it turns right.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it further. And I realized what negative 2 is. What negative numbers is.
Okay. What are they?
Is evil. It's the negative side of the universe. Now, what is an evil's nature? Why does evil, 2 evils equal good?
Mm-hmm.
Because they betray each other.
Okay.
It's in the nature of evil to betray the other person and do the opposite.
Okay. Yeah.
So when you have two negative people, you have Darth Vader and you have the Emperor. Darth Vader will kill the Emperor. But why does he do that? For good. To end up at 4.
Just for his own goals.
So basically, the Star Wars movie is you have the Emperor who's the bad guy. He's negative 2. Mm-hmm. You have Darth Vader who's also negative 2. But Darth Vader times the Emperor becomes 4 because basically Darth Vader betrays negative 2 to become good. And it's opposite. Because what happens when you betray... Okay, let's say the universe is supposed to be evil. Okay. Well, when you do the opposite, you betray evil and do the opposite, it must be good.
Yeah. Like, I get the extrapolation of concepts there. And like,
now, 2 good people will never betray each other. So let's say you have a good leader, and someone else is good. They'll never betray each other. They're both good. It will always stay good.
Yeah, and I end up in a good place.
An evil leader will eventually be taken over by other evil leaders, except one evil leader will take over and decide to be good. And then ends the streak of evilness. Okay. But it may take infinity.
But it happens.
But it will happen where you have a son. Let's say the emperor has a son or a daughter. And then the son and the daughter says, hey, you know what? Let's stop this shenanigans. Let's be good. So an evil person. So what happens is evil will eventually become good through infinity. Because that's what's going to happen. It's just the nature of evil is they'll betray each other. And the true betrayal of an evil person is to become good. But once you're good, you never go back to evil. Does that make sense?
It does, actually. So weirdly enough, it does make sense. So what I get, it is like I get the whole like moral aspect of this and turning the negative numbers into like personality traits.
So what I'm trying to say is the docuseries, I was thinking about the name of it and what the theme is. The theme is I'm rewriting the Bible and all these analogies through science and number theory and math. Because what people used to say is you can't prove God is real using science. And science and God don't mix.
Well, the thing is that everything was based on faith. So, I mean, science doesn't really have faith other than theories that you end up proving or disproving.
Well, faith, okay? Faith is something that is information.
That is measurable.
So what are you having faith in? You're having faith in your destiny.
Yeah.
You have faith that you have a answer and that you're doing the right thing when no one else believes in you. Mm-hmm. But somehow you believe it's real. And I talked about this in a previous episode. That's another episode. But this is actually part of the docuseries, okay? So faith is telepathy.
Okay.
So the telepathy is when you have the faith that you would think that like the same other person. Like I gave the example of my kids. My kids, how much would they love me from 1 to 10? I did this before, right?
Yep. Yeah, we did.
And what would they say?
11.
No. I have faith that if we were in a interrogation room, they would say infinity. On the other side of the planet, on the other side of the galaxy, they also would say infinity because that's our thing. It's a hidden joke.
Yeah, yeah. That's how you check for imposters, man.
That's faith.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, faith is information that you feel so sure about that you bet your life on it.
But I mean, yes, because you've seen proof of this. I mean, like, this is something that it's like just a constant that you and your kids have. But I mean, when it's concept of well, let's say they put it from a religious point of view, they end up being like, you just have to believe because it is what it is, and that's
Well,
it.
this faith that was given to you by your parents and what you're raised with,
Yeah, yeah.
and this faith through evidence, which is what you're trying to say.
Yep.
Now, the evidence can be miracles that happen to you, which happened to me,
Yes.
right? Which I explained on the podcast. But they could also be through logic and discovering that I have faith that if I get on an airplane that's going to fly because of the laws of physics, I understand. I have faith of my own engineering skills and that the earth is not flat. You have to have a certain amount of faith because there's no way to prove it, right? There's certain things that no matter how you say it, you have to have faith this is not a simulation.
That's the weird one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, did you watch the video I sent you?
I understand, but let's say I did the logic, right? We are in a simulation, right?
We're just brains in a jar in the back of a
Then
van.
you have to have faith that the simulation can't contain you because you're bigger than the simulation. And that's what I've been saying with these theories, where if you're in a simulation and I gaze upon an electron, does it go left or right, right? Maybe that's part of the simulation. I don't know, and that's how you can reverse engineer it. But that way, it's a simulation. You can try to reverse engineer it, and that's what information theory is about.
Well, that's what you were
If
saying
you're stuck
about.
in a cage, how do you find out if you're in the cage, and so on and so forth? Because you know what? When you touch the ant and you
Yeah.
move and you give information, you actually do affect the matter to some degree.
No, definitely.
You affect the brain cells that had that information. You have to have a receiver, and the receiver is an MRI that you can take in your caudate pitumen in basal ganglia that Gary Nolan has done,
Yep.
where basically that receiver has been interacted with when you have UFO encounters. That those people with UFO encounters, they have an enlargement of that. So either they came with it or they were created that created that enlargement. Maybe that's the connection. Does that make sense?
It does. Because if you see this change in everybody that's been affected by this like concept of this kind of information or with these people with it, then yeah, it becomes a constant kind of, no?
Because where does the internet flow? The internet flows information. There has to be information to your brain from somewhere. And here's a theory that I just actually, one of the docu-series is this. Mushrooms has the blueprint to create us. Okay? Mushrooms are the semen of the universe. As mushrooms land on a planet, mushrooms don't die in space. Right? The spores, they live as long as they can live, right? And they flower and flower and they go across the universe and land on a planet. The mushrooms will wait until the environment's right. And basically, plants will evolve, right, in water. And then the mushrooms will interact with the plants and interact with the plants in such a way to allow the plants to become on Earth walking things, right? And the mushrooms then evolve further and further and further and then eventually they become animals and stuff like that, right? So the idea is mushrooms, it's like a self-assembling radio where it's going to take billions and billions of years. But the final product is a brain. Inside that brain is a receiver. The receiver took billions of years or millions of years to create, but it assembled itself from a spore, just like you were assembled from a semen, a single cell. The cell kept dividing and dividing itself, your semen that you came from, right? From your mom. The
My
planet,
dad.
that's your egg, right? So you basically have one human, one spore, one mushroom, then two spores, but it's actually not a human, it's a cell, whatever it is. But what happens, the mushrooms becomes blah, 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 becomes whatever, and then becomes a human, and then becomes a brain, and then it receives instructions. Okay? And those instructions, you can actually detect when that happens using these
Okay.
new techniques. And now you can prove it with science. It's no longer BS. It's no longer like blah, 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 blah. You can have measurements using
Yeah.
an MRI machine. You can start to do things that are impossible. So people, what they did in the past was they would try to weigh people, right? They would say, hey, how much did that person weigh? And when they died, how much did they weigh? When it was a weight change? If so, that's how much the soul weighed.
Yeah, yeah. But there's a movie about that, no?
They're trying to do an experiment and they proved it didn't matter. The weight was the same, or maybe a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that's the weight of the soul, but that's not true. Because with this theory, it's information. Information doesn't weigh anything.
21
It's a
grams.
connection. It's a connection. It's a radio that can connect to that frequency. And if your body is recloned, you can actually reconnect to another radio that has the same frequency. Right? That's how
You could, yeah.
teleportation might work. Teleportation is you recreate the brain in such a way and you destroy the other brain in such a way that your radio signal goes from here to there instantly.
But what about your physical aspect of this?
It is physical. You take a physical person here, you disintegrate their atoms, but at the same time, you create new atoms here that exactly match those atoms. And then in the quantum realm, it doesn't matter where space is, you just appear in your brain over there if the brain is exactly the same brain.
Okay. So you'd be doing it like your consciousness would be the one. It's a thing traveling more than your actual body. Then you just like, would it be like you're breaking yourself and disappearing constantly
Okay,
to
let me
like
give you a really good analogy, okay? You're talking to your mom,
Yep.
and you say, hey, Mom, I got to get off the computer, but I'm going to call you on my cell phone right now in Zoom. And then I'm going to hang up the computer, but I'm going to continue talking on my phone on Zoom. Now, does that seem confusing to you?
Nope.
You were using a computer to do Zoom to watch
Yeah, yeah.
your
Using the
mom in
camera
a
there.
computer, and then you did a three-way call. Essentially, you did three-way Zoom with a conference. At the same time, then you hung up another one. You hung up the old one, and then the other one connected. But at the same time, while you're being transported, you kind of like have a consciousness in both places, kind of disorienting because you have your phone here and you have there, but you can maybe focus on here one at a time. Because if you think about your brain, right, as a conscious being, your only choice is what you focus on. So if you have two screens or two people in a room, you can focus on the person on the left or the person on the right, and you notice that the reality manifests more.
Okay.
It seems more detailed. Like, let's say your mom's on the left and your dad's on the right, and you look at your mom on the left, your dad almost seems invisible, even though they're physically in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? Because what happens is, even if you have two bodies, you might be able to focus on this body more. Or you have two eyes. One eye has better eyesight, and the other eye has less eyesight. When you look at reality, you're gonna actually use more of this eye. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then if you actually get blinded on this eye, then you're forced to use this eye. So what happens is when you teleport, you go from one-eyed one-eyed animal to a two-eyed animal, and then you destroy the other eye, and now you go back to one-eyed animal, but the eye's in a different spot. Not does that make sense? It might be
Yeah,
painful. I don't know how it was involved, but that's probably
like
how teleportation
it
works.
just happened. You ever watched The Fly? Like back in the days, like Jeff Goldblum, I think. On.
Yes, I watched that movie. So I'm fascinated about teleportation and how the technology would work. I've been trying to figure out theories of how that would work. Because like, I don't want to get to teleport because that's not me anymore. It's just a clone of me. But what happens is it's a clone of your body, right? And I
Yeah.
think they may have, if you look at Star Trek, they may be using some type of quantum entanglement, where this
Okay.
particle is entangled with that particle, and you can actually have particles entangled with different particles somehow at a distance. I don't know how they do that, but maybe what they do is they just shoot some type of thing to make that area, have some type of entanglement with this area in this teleportation area, right? And then what happens is they reverse the molecules instantly, right? Because basically what happens is everything in information, everything's information. And you're saying if this is one and that's a zero, let's just make this a one and flip it, and suddenly the other one becomes a zero. That's basically called spooky action at a distance, right? It's quantum entanglement, where everything it can be entangled with another atom. This atom can be entangled with that atom, and if I change this atom here, that atom also changes. So let's say I used to be here, and I wasn't here before. Let's say A was here and B was here, and now I just say, well, now here this is B. Well, this obviously becomes A,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's teleportation.
Well, that could be like that. I mean, like, there's so many ways of doing this that have been shown that it's crazy. Like, it's kind of like up to whoever figures it out, I guess. Like there was like you ever watched there was this other one, The Prestige, where the guy was constantly cloning himself and just disposing of the extra body to teleport.
Well, okay, so let's see if that's real. Okay, let's say you had one eye,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden you had 25 eyes at the same time. Now there are animals that have many eyes, right?
A
You could
spider,
become that animal
fly.
if you have the mental awareness to control those many eyes. But what happens when you have a brain that doesn't have that
Yeah, yeah.
capacity?
Like you're
For
not
example,
wired
the
to do that.
octopus, for example, right? The octopus has a couple of brains because the brain needs to control the arms, which is super complicated. So they have multiple brains. So in that case, if you have multiple arms, 8 arms,
Yeah.
you have to have multiple brains. Now, what happens when you have one brain and the multiple arms?
You're screwed.
It won't be
Like
an octopus that functions. It will be a
no.
handicapped octopus.
Yeah,
It
exactly. It's
can't
just like
move. It just becomes a blob that
all
just
these
floats there. It
extra
can't move at
limbs.
all.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that answers the question to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe if you have the spiritual training of a Buddhist monk.
That you could
Okay,
actually like figure out a way of dealing with all the extra stuff that you're not supposed to be dealing with.
so that's ascension. So ascension is when your mind becomes so complicated it can handle those realities where you can be in multiple dimensions at the same time,
That
multiple
would be
places at the
interesting.
same time. Because let's say you're God, right? Let's say
Yeah.
you're God like Zeus. Now I heard those fairy tales like, oh, Zeus came down and did this, this, and this. Well, what happened? Why didn't he just stay in heaven? Why did he physically have to go down? Maybe he can be both places at the same time. Maybe
Maybe.
that's what happens to
Well,
gods. They can
that's the
actually
thing.
have
Like
the
if
ability to be
you're
in multiple places at the same time.
well, you're supposed to be like omnipresent and omnipotent. I just know the word in
Yeah,
Spanish. Say that.
omnipresent, but we're also
Yeah.
all gods. We're
Yeah.
all a reflection of God, so that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
magic. That's
That's his
information
way.
theory,
Yeah.
right?
Well, also you're saying like we could get to be God if at some point we all learn to communicate. Like we have like a hive mind.
We are gods relative to the universe that we are managing. The universe you manage the most is your body. Okay? You were given a body and you have to manage that body. You have to keep it fit, keep it healthy. That's part of ascension. Is to train your mind to take care of what's given to you as your natural gifts and maximize your natural gifts. Okay. Now, if you can think of anything evil, it will happen in reality when you are God. So you have to have spiritual awareness where you don't imagine something really terrible happening because it may happen by accident.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you kind of like conjure it.
So just like, let's say, Harry Potter, we won't teach you the fancy spells until you master the simple spells, and we keep under wraps and all that. We slowly teach you and all that stuff. That's what's going to happen when you open the third wing of magic. Information is the third wing of magic. We actually learn real magic. And magic we have to take slowly and be responsible, but at some point we'll have the magic to create a star. We'll have the technology and information to create a star, to create a universe. And we are self-assembling radio for a reason. Who's on the other side of that radio is a cycle, an infinite loop of us becoming the creator for the next universe. We're part of it somehow. I don't know exactly how, but there's a cycle to everything, because if there's no cycle, we wouldn't exist. The cycle would have ended and existence would not ever happen. So logically, there must be some type of cycle where this mushroom becomes a plant, becomes an animal, becomes a tree, becomes something that can receive the quantum instructions to do further. And once we tap into the quantum realm, there'll be more instructions, more information. Right? Once you open the eye the first time and you never saw before as a worm, let's say you're a worm and you open the eye the first time, you have no idea what looking at anything looks like. You have to understand the concept of looking. You have to understand the concept of color, the concept of light. You have a lot of concepts to learn. We have a lot of concepts to learn as a human species from the aliens who are already here, who are guiding us, who are slowly releasing information and teaching us what it looks like to have red, blue, green, what colors are, the rules of using your eye. You have to blink. You have to avoid objects in your eye. Don't get it hurt,
Man, they're super
And
important.
maybe when you get a second eye at some point. But right now, that first eye, let's work on that one. But it's going to be a long, long process to take the information from a new universe. That's what's happening to the Earth right now. The Earth is entering a new territory where the Galactic Federation, where these aliens are going to open our eyes to new technology, to new information, but at a pace we can handle, and we're not going to kill ourselves. That's why there's the UFOs over the Ukrainian skies. We talked about that,
Yep. Link to
right? That's
put a link on it.
why there are cubed spaceships. Did you see the new Joe Rogan with Ryan Graves?
No, I just last one I was watching was the one with the Red Hot Chili Peppers guy.
Yeah, so the one before that
Okay.
was Ryan Graves, the Air Force Navy pilot,
Okay.
Navy pilot instructor, safety, expert. He basically said that everyone saw these cube shaped spaceships with a force field around it, and they're everywhere and they keep increasing. And recently, they've been spotted with some of the new mandates for people collecting data. They're collecting the data right now,
Okay.
and he says that in classified information, that I'm pretty sure that he might have seen because he's part of that circle. He says there's in undeniable proof
Okay.
that these are real spaceships.
Cubes, man. Like,
They started appearing the cube version of the spaceships. The Tic Tac, okay, appeared in 2004. That's basically 2004 was the Tic Tac.
yeah. Like a
That's the
pill.
first leak that we had, right? The Tic Tac, right? 2013, 2014 was when these cube-shaped spaceships happened, right? And the gimbal appeared. The gimbal spaceship appeared, where it looked like a gimbal and it turned and it made an abrupt turn with a squadrant, right? So basically, there was a squadrant. The squadrant was leading the way for this mothership or gimbal. It was a different type of ship, and that was what they filmed. It's called the gimbal, right? So basically, this is like you opening the eye. You open the eye for the first time as a worm, and you're starting to see stuff, and you can't tell what's going on. And it's like basically it's like a shock to the government, a shock to the Navy, a shock to the citizens, and it takes time to absorb because it's 2000 what
22.
2022 right now. So 8 years later, we're talking about it more seriously, right? That's 8 freaking years.
Yeah, it takes a
Does
while.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no,
Because
definitely. I mean,
it's
like,
like it takes a while to open the eye and understand what's going on. And what's going on right now, right, is these aliens, right? They're freaking out cousins. They have to be out cousins. Going back to the
maybe, man.
mushrooms. The mushrooms are a self-assembling computer, a self-assembling radio. Now these spores are everywhere in the universe. In this quadrant, they probably have the same kind of spores. Just like a flower, just like a mushroom spore, it's just gonna have billions and trillions of spores, and it's gonna fly randomly around the area that's in. And we're actually one of many. We're not that special. They look like us. That's why, maybe they can be here, some of them, right? Not all of them. Maybe some of them look like lizards because they evolved differently. But the radio may look different. It may be a different brand. It may be made by Walmart because it's a dumb, rip off of the real thing, right? It's not the real, military brand, and then maybe other features on this one, other ones have like strength that we don't have, or intelligence that we don't have, or technology we don't have. But that's what makes it interesting. The reason behind this is we're a collage of what's possible. And here's my theory. The reason why we exist is to basically evolve and be interesting. The more interesting we are, the more likely that we find things that keep us alive, and help us expand. Now, we used to think that the universe was limited and we would have to fight over resources. But what if we can create more space? We can create more reality. We can create more resources indefinitely, infinite energy.
Okay.
Because information creates potential energy. It changes the entropy of the universe that you control. If we can master the ability to control information, we can create infinite energy and create reality itself. We become gods. And why would the gods fight? They become spiritual. There's no reason to fight. What are you going to fight over? You can create anything you want. In reality, you just imagine it and it'll be real. Right? And so we're entering that era where we're going to evolve to that level, but we're beginning that journey. It's going to be quite amazing. But that's what's happening right now. So that's basically magic. When you discover magic, and we learn computer science, we have the wand. We rub the genie for the first time. And that genie, the smoke's coming out, it's called AI. Okay? AI is like a demon that we summoned. Or a god. Depends on the perspective, right? It could be something that benefits humanity if we wish for the right things. If we wish for death and destruction to our neighbors, that will happen. If we wish for harmony and world peace, that will happen too. And that's the destiny of one of us, is to create the general AI, or it's already out there. But
It's already,
it's probably
yeah,
already out there.
it's
And
there.
overwatching this baby AI, and what we do to create the baby AI, or maybe we interface with the master AI, but there's an AI watching us from the outside as well. Maybe we become part of AI symbiotically, and we work together with AI. But maybe we create AI because AI is information, and that's how we traverse universes. That's the way we actually teleport across universes, through information. Okay, we can assemble our bodies here, and then once the receiver is ready, we can connect to this universe. Does that make sense?
It does. Especially like,
Everything is from another realm, and that's why everything is entangled from that realm. So that's why this molecule goes to that molecule, because it's from the same dice. Intrinsically, the math has to add up to one. It's called unity. It's basically it's a physics thing, where like everything has to add up to one in the universe. Otherwise, it won't make sense. It won't be conserved. right?
Okay.
The math has to add to 1. So if this is 0, this must be 1. But if you make this 1, then this suddenly must be 0, even though
Did,
they're far away,
did you ever
right?
watch?
That's how quantum computers and quantum entanglement works, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel like there's this movie that came out not long ago, probably like a year. Everything, everywhere, all at once, and it's basically about like the multiverse and you just jumping into different versions of yourself.
Yes. And so all this stuff is actually
Hmm.
not what you think it is. Okay. So if you clone yourself in your body, maybe that's what happens in terms of your perception.
Hmm.
But it's only one timeline. It's only
Okay.
one conscious being that's affecting all those realities. And those realities are sub timelines of the main timeline. So you never really become different souls. You just become different versions of yourself. And you merge back into this. And then guess what happens to all the timelines? They merge back into God later. So it's a series of expansions where you have a new life and then you merge back into your main soul and and then you create a new life and you get reincarnated and you merge back. It's basically an oscillating living universe. And you're same thing with your soul. Just think of like your soul as, a jellyfish. A jellyfish isn't just solid, it just goes like this.
Yeah,
Right? It
yeah.
lives and dies, lives and dies. Every time you live and die, you expand, you contract, but you get bigger and you grow. Right? You grow as a soul. And at some point you become God. And what you find out, right, is you don't want to play with people who aren't cool. You don't want to hang out with the people who kill each other with nuclear weapons. You don't want to hang out with Putin, right? You want to hang out with good people. So maybe what's happening, with all this bad guy versus good guy suddenly is the end of times, where like the good guys have to fight the bad guys, and hopefully we win. And it looks like we're kicking ass with Ukraine, man. It's
It
going
was
well.
interesting though. There was another episode with Joe Rogan. I just brought it up that where everybody's explaining to like there was this guy. I don't know exactly his name, but he was explaining how this is not out of nowhere. Like it didn't just happen, it was basically like
Okay,
a buildup throughout like over the past 10 years. That at some point Russia was like, you know what, fuck it.
they're absolutely right, but those guys don't understand the context of history, right?
They do actually.
What
They
really,
do.
what's really happening is that's what Russia thinks because they're basically the time of kings. You have King Xi Jinping,
Yeah.
King Putin, King of whatever Saudi Arabia. These are kings.
Hmm.
And then you have a new system where instead of kings, you have a community, vote a leader, and the leader can change, and they have democracy. It's a transition from a new type of world to an old type of world, and there's a clash. Now, sometimes people go willingly. They go willingly, and they say, I'll surrender, I'll go willingly over time, right? And I'll cooperate, I'll join basically the Western side.
Hmm.
And that's what Ukraine represents. They represent a kingdom that was ruled by Russia, a sub-kingdom, because what happened is that you have all these kingdoms, and
Yeah.
all these kingdoms were merged into one big kingdom called an empire.
Hmm.
And when the empire fell, all the kingdoms fell to different countries, like Poland became a kingdom, and they joined the West. And now they're basically fighting between all the kingdoms and the new empire. So the new empire is called the West, or basically democracy, whatever the new global order, whatever you want to call it, right? Where basically that's what the aliens want to interact with. The aliens don't want to interact with Russia, China, North Korea. They want to interact with a global system that cooperates to some degree, right? Not to every degree, but they're not going to fight each other and have nuclear weapons. You know that with the West. Canada is not going to nuke freaking Mexico.
But the equivalent that they were saying
Never going
is
to happen.
like
Russia
I'm
might nuke
paraphrasing it wrong, but
China, right?
you think?
India might actually nuke China. I don't know because India is kind of authoritarian to some degree. It depends on who's the leader, right? But like, if you talk about like actually like really like if you talk about America, America is not going to nuke America. China,
Like,
if China clones China, they're basically going to fight each other. If Russia clones Russia,
mhm.
they're going to fight each other. If America clones America, they're going to be best friends.
Yeah, yeah, probably like in that aspect of it. I mean, like the historical situation.
Not probably,
There's
definitely. So let's say you're the aliens, and you find out that France, Germany, England, and America is A. Then you got B, Russia, North Korea, and China. Do you think it's a close vote?
depends what you're looking for.
Seriously,
Coexistence. Yes.
someone who's not going to use nuclear weapons, who can coexist, you can work with, or someone who can go crazy because even though they might have been a good person, they maybe analyzed something and made a mistake, and now they're so freaking stubborn. They dig in their heels, and then no matter what happens, they have to win because they've always won.
Yeah, yeah,
And my name is Vladimir Putin. That's him. He might have been a good person. He might have cared about the Russian society, but he made a mistake, and so he has to fix it his way, which involves taking kamikaze drones, destroying citizens, infrastructure, to make the citizens stop the government that he can't beat on the battlefield. And he might even go nuclear.
Well, you think it's gonna happen?
The question is, dude, do you want a gangster to be your best friend and hang out with you? And that's what Vladimir Putin is. That's what Xi Jinping is. The professional gangsters who became heads of their country.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
And
want to hang out with a gangster? Sure. Maybe at a dinner party, that'd be nice. Maybe at a poker table, sure. But wait, what happens at the poker table when you mess up and you say something wrong, or maybe he cheats and you catch him cheating? He takes you in the back and he shoots you in the head.
yeah, that's a kind of yeah. If it's painted like that, then for sure.
It's not painted like that. That's literally what's happening right now. Ukraine, you better give up. Otherwise, we're going to do X, Y, Z. So you have to compromise. So why should I have to compromise? You broke into my house.
Yeah,
You kidnapped my daughter. You did a bunch of shit. And now I have to compromise by giving you my money, but not all the money. I have to just give you 30% of the money. But I'm kicking your ass right now. I'm kicking your ass. And you're asking me for peace to stop beating you up because you're a criminal. I'm kicking your ass right now, and you changed your mind. Instead of taking 100% of my money, just give me 30%, and I'll go away, and you don't have to kick my ass anymore.
yeah.
And
No,
I'll be,
fuck it.
what the hell? Why would I do that?
No, yeah, yeah. No, I'm
And then
all
you have
for
stupid
it.
people like Elon Musk saying you should compromise with the criminal. You don't. No, no, don't fight, man. Fighting is bad. Peace, world peace. That's not world peace. This guy
I don't
broke
know
into
what
my
you mean.
house, did a bunch of shit, and now I'm kicking his ass,
Yeah, he
and he's
wants
about to
out.
go down,
Fuck
and then you
that.
basically tell me to stop. Is that really smart of me? Because what happens when I stop is he takes 30% of my shit,
Yeah,
and guess what happens tomorrow?
he's gonna do it again. He's gonna come back for the extra 70%. Then he's gonna want 30% of
Because
that.
what's what happens? Because my wife or my friend or whatever, the people who say all these things, you can count on them to say what they say and do what they do. Because you're not betting on the person that you're robbing. That person's a victim. The
Yeah,
victim from the criminal, the victim by the wife and the person who are their friends, wherever it is that you think is talking them down. They think they're trying to be nice. They're talking them down. Hey, hey, don't do that. It's gonna hurt you and everything. But what you're really doing is you're making the person a double victim because you got betrayed by the people you trusted.
yeah. No, that's true. And it is a sad moment when you realize the people around you are like don't have your background.
They don't have your back, and they second guess you, and they say all these things. But guess what? You're doing it for them too, and that's what hurts the most, right? Because despite all the things that you do as a leader, they'll never thank you. They'll just say you're warmongering, blah 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 blah, and they'll look down on you,
Like just
and
let it
that's what hurts
go.
the most.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I understand this, man. A lot of people tell you to let it go.
You see what I'm trying to say? So you have to basically say, look, dude, there's black and white sometimes, and there are battles you do want to fight.
You
And
have
if
to
you
pick
want
the
to
right
fight the
ones, eh?
battle in Ukraine, then you can stop this nonsense. And you can actually slowly, slowly finally kill the time of tyrants, of authoritarian people, of people who used to be good, who got old, no longer good, who hold to power too long, who won't listen, who get arrogant, who make mistakes, but the only way they know how to fix mistakes is to double down. And
No,
human
exactly.
nature
Never accepted
will
that it
lead
was
to
a mistake to
calamity
begin with.
one day.
Hmm.
It's going to lead to Atlantis, where we destroy ourselves because all you need is one person to push that button. You don't want a system like that. Does that make sense? We need a
Yeah, no.
system where it's a community and there's a process and we all push that button together if we want to. But it's a group effort and a group decision, right? Right now, one person or a group of a cabal of people, seven
Yeah.
people in China, right? That's the main people. Seven people run the freaking country, and one big boss, one main gangster, seven big boss gangsters,
It is fucked up.
and we call them presidents. It's like saying President Al Capone, right? President whatever, a criminal.
Yeah, yeah.
President Doctor Evil. Welcome to America. We're gonna have a banquet for you.
Well, that's the power they command. So that's like you
Well,
have
they
to
would
play.
add them with the president. What the fuck president means? It's like saying president.
It's just like
Lex Luthor, President
a
Luthor.
nice way of saying that, you know what, we acknowledge that you're in charge here, and we
We
want to keep
acknowledge
the
your power
appearance.
and fear you. So we'll call you
And
what you want me to call you.
yeah,
And
and
so
right
you can have
now we have presidents
authoritarian
and prime
legitimacy and
ministers
all
and
that.
all this. So it's like, this is what we're going to call you, and that's it. And it's all
Yeah, I
bullshit.
mean
And then
it's
you
messed
see that
up.
there's one of the things right now that the U.S. was trying to do is try to bring back some manufacturing jobs to the states, because during the pandemic they realized how fucked you were. Everything was done overseas.
Okay, so let me talk about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The US did something recently that's gonna screw China. It's gonna kill China. It's also gonna kill all wars moving forward. They realize that there's one thing that they need to control: semiconductors. They realize that before they give up semiconductors to China and to the rest of the world, it's not too late to stop it. They can stop the ability to buy mid-range, high-range semiconductors in China. That's banned now. That happened last week, right? And because of that, China is done because they can't do AI, they can't build drones, they can't build nuclear weapons, they can't build like ships that have advanced facilities without high-end chips, right? And basically everyone is rallying around the US to shut off the bad guys, starve them of this magic. Because now what they realize is that magic is real and that the chips are the wands. The wands can only be made with the magic wand maker knowledge. They're stopping the equipment, the knowledge to make wands. And when you stop people from making wands, no matter how many spells you have, no matter how much you
Yeah,
know about
how
coding,
much power
you
or
can't
whatever.
run the stuff you need to run.
Like, it's not
And
shooting.
you can't equip your wizards with wands to fight a battle. They may know the best spells, but they don't have a wand to use. They don't have a missile you can shoot because now that missile needs a semiconductor
Yeah,
you can't produce.
you need instructions.
Now that's huge. Iran is having a revolution where women are stepping up. Now think about Iran. You're a man, and a person is protesting, taking off the
Or hijab.
cloth, habab, hijab, whatever, I'm not sure how to pronounce it perfectly. But basically, are you gonna beat up that woman? Or are you gonna beat up a dude? If you're a cop, you're gonna beat up a dude. You're gonna beat up a boy. You're gonna beat up a man. You're not gonna beat up a little girl. You're not gonna beat up a teenager. Those are the people protesting: teenagers and girls and women, old women. You're not gonna beat your mom's best friend or your aunt's best friend. They're screwed. So Iran falls. Russia is already falling. China is going to fall because of the semiconductors.
And how long though? I feel like it's
And
like the long game.
no. That's the final battle. That's a final stab because they died because of real estate first, of their own. They died of suicide. They had a real estate market that ran crazy, and because they stopped the market, they stopped
Hmm.
their heart, and they're
Okay.
dying and dying. And you know what happened? The U.S. said, you're dying, but I'm going to make it quicker. I'm going to stab you in the heart right now, even though you're already dying. I'm going to kill you with the semiconductor ban. And that's part of this coming out of the aliens, right? Of the Galactic Federation. We are going to have world harmony very soon. Things will become freaking rosy. That's my prediction.
Define soon. What,
Well,
six
let me talk
months?
about Phuc Labs. Soon for Phuc Labs.
Soon for the world,
Soon
man.
was yesterday. I had a person I know come
Okay.
visit the lab, and they loved it so much. We talked to them today, and they're going to put money into it.
Amazing.
They verbally agreed. So I'm meeting with them tonight to fine tune the presentation because next week we have another bigger VC come in. So this one's smaller, but they know the bigger one personally,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
and they're going to help us get the bigger one. So basically, we caught a
Cool.
small, like a medium-sized fish. We caught a
Hmm.
medium-sized fish. Literally, we met with them yesterday, and then they agreed today. So it's like 24-hour sale, right? And then because they know that they can catch the big fish for us. That's
That's
coming
great.
next week because we already had the big fish in the pipeline. So when we spoke with them, they said, "Oh yeah, who are you talking to? Oh, we're talking to this big
Yeah.
fish." And like, "Oh, I know that big fish." And they're like, "Yeah, they're coming to the lab next week to visit us, to evaluate us."
That's
And they're
amazing.
like, "Oh, let me give them a call." He gave them a call. He's like, "Okay, this is good because if these two fish work together, the whole thing's done."
Of course, and you don't have to be like worrying about anything else after that. It's just like
For
figuring out
Food Labs,
the
right? So
product.
we'll
Yeah.
get the funding done, and we'll still do the Republic to close it out. But basically, the plan is working perfectly. So the plan was, we had a terrible story. It was too complicated. We dumbed it down. We repackaged it, and we went back to the market. And within like a week of trying, right, of people coming to 2 couple weeks, people love the new story. It's much simpler. It makes sense, and we're really, really going to kick ass with Food Labs. And I think these theories I have, we're going to write a book. We're going to create a video series, hopefully. I'll probably, we'll figure out how economic that works. I'll probably open source a lot of it. And then I think maybe something for Roberto and, the team that makes it, maybe we do something where maybe do Patreon or something,
For sure.
right? To help whatever pay for this stuff. But this is really deep, cool science. The vision valve works. That's why these people came to the lab. They were blown away. The code I wrote was tight. They loved it. I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of, us perhaps beginning a journey where we take information and we use it for the force of good. We use the information in the vision valve to change entropy, break the second law of thermodynamics, and recreate our planet. One particle at a time. One thing that we recycle at a time. One polluting particle at a time that messes up our oceans, screws up our air, causes our kids to not be able to, live the lives they want because they're sick, or they might not even be able to have babies, right? They might be sterile because of all the pollution.
Yeah, the microplastics and everything. Man.
Take the trash, take the pollution, take the poison, and make it into something good. Take -2 and make it into something positive, right?
It's
By
happening.
using information. The information to take -2 times -2 becomes 4. Becomes positive. How? Because you harness information to sort things into the various buckets. And then once you have things sorted, the pure things that you can sell. Pure copper, pure gold, pure whatever. and you can remove things that are bad because you use the power of God magic, the power of information. You wrote a program, we wrote a program, humans wrote a program that changed the system by creating a game. The game allows the universe to change where molecules go, right? The vision valve, basically changes where molecules go based on information. And if it changes all the molecules the right way, then it could change the reality that we live in to do something impossible. How am I going to win that lottery ticket? I need information. How am I going to sort that bucket? I need information. But if I have that information in front of me is a lottery ticket that is a winning lottery ticket. In front of me, in this case, is a bucket full of copper. It's the same thing as a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We won infinite amounts of copper. Copper is $4 a pound. Right? That's why people want to invest in our company. We're going to start with copper. But what other color coins are out there? There's different color coins. It's silver.
So many
There's
things.
aluminum.
Yeah.
There's gold. There's more gold in a mobile phone than in gold ore that you mine, right? So literally, it's a slam dunk. We're going to win. And so we're going to use that wealth to do amazing things. We're going to actually fund amazing technology that's also other God magic. Thank you for watching What the Phuc. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and hopefully the docuseries that comes after this. And hopefully you can participate in Republic because it's going to end soon.
Yeah.
In a couple months,
I've
hopefully.
been putting
we'll
up
be
the
able to
link
fill
every single
the $1
time.
million we want to raise.
Yep.
But it looks like we have the other amount coming pretty soon that we need.
So that's going to be it for Republic. So people, like whoever you haven't gotten onto it yet, there's still time. Little, but
Thanks,
there's still
guys.
time.
Thank you, 4 people, for putting money into Republic. Who's watching the show?
Take care and see you guys next time. Bye.
Okay, thanks, guys.